a Nikan Royal Ambassador style welcome to Mr. Ben Woodward.
That's a reception. Thank you. Thank you. I'm touched. I'm touched. So, what a pleasure it is to be with you tonight. I'm really thrilled to be here. This is an energy that I think is just outstanding. This is why I'm with Nikan. Yeah? It's the people, it's the feelings that you have here that makes our life so meaningful and so abundant and so worthwhile. This is what it's all about. Now, I want to follow on a little bit from what Jeff talked about earlier. He talked about the vision of Nikan, where we're going, shared a compelling vision of getting us into the top 10 of the industry leading companies over the next few years. A fantastic commitment that we need to get published, documented, circulated all around the world so that we can all get that message out there and all start running at that course. That's fantastic. I want to take a slightly different perspective on this concept of vision tonight. And I want to be a little bit serious as well, as a little bit fun. But there is a principle that is really important for us to grasp. I find that some of the success principles that help us to achieve and to become often get overlooked because they are counterintuitive. Meaning sometimes we need to do what is the opposite of what we feel in order to get the right outcome. Yeah? One of these principles which I want to touch on, which is an important part of following a vision. The easy part is catching the vision. The challenge is learning how to apply it and to live it. And the reason that's a challenge is because the fun often is when it's up here in our head or in our heart. But we often get unexpected turns in our journey that get us to realize the journey, the vision, which is sometimes difficult for us. So one of these counterintuitive truths that is important for us to grasp is that joy or abundance and suffering, the challenge, are two sides of a single reality. They coexist together. Does that make sense? Sometimes when we have our vision, we get excited. The 10-year plan to be one in the top 10, it sounds fantastic. It's great while we sit here, but the journey to get there will require a little bit of suffering, a little bit of pain, a little bit of discomfort. Now this isn't just a principle of business, it's a principle of life. We see it in everything. A simple example that I can think of is when I was first married, and my wife and I were excited at the thought of starting our own family. And in the absence of children, we thought, what a treat it will be to have these little versions of you and me running about the house. Won't that be nice and sweet? And cradle them to sleep in our arms, and they'll go peacefully to sleep at night. We'll wake up in the morning smiling. You've got all this wonderful fantasy kind of perception of what it's really like. Yeah? 6 children later, I can tell you that joy and suffering are in fact coexistent in that situation. Certain things that happen that you just take for granted when you don't have kids suddenly become impossible to do. Yeah? Little things like leaving the house. This is how someone without kids decides to leave the house. I think I'm going to leave the house. Open the door, thank you very much. Nice, and away they go. Every day in my household it takes at least 20 minutes just to get out the front door. Yeah? This is a little bit of what it's like for us, just trying to leave the house. So, okay kids, come on, let's go, we're late already, get down the stairs. I've got an 11-year-old who refuses to come downstairs. He never wants to leave the house. Come on, we're going to be late, get downstairs. Toby, get your shoes on. Where are your shoes? Oh, I don't know where my shoes are. Where did you see them last, Toby? On my feet. For goodness sake, come on, come on, arms up, come on, head in, arms in, arms up. That's it, you get your top on. That's my wife. She's so tired in the morning, she cannot get herself dressed. I think the last time I had an uninterrupted night's sleep was about 13 years ago, before our children came into this earth. Yeah? As a matter of principle, even when I travel, my body wakes me up anyway. It's just used to being interrupted every single night. I've been pooped on, weed on, my nose is wiped on my sleeve. We had one situation, which was horrible, but I'm sure, again, people with kids will relate. When little toddlers are getting ready to get out of nappies, they realise that they can take them off. Yeah, you've been there? Right? And on one occasion, again, it's difficult to get out of the house, so we're running late again, but we've got to get as fast as we can. We're trying to get out the door. The nappy's off. We look around, it's a dirty one. Oh, okay, quickly, and we're like a machine now, right? So I'm tidying this one up, getting it dressed. My wife's grabbing the nappy. Problem. The contents are missing. What's it? He's hidden them. Somewhere in the house, there is poop. It could be under my bed. It could be under the sofa. I don't know where it is. We're running late. You don't want to leave it there and come home to a smell. Why does this happen? Why do we put up with this? Why do we go through this all the time? Why? Because they are also the source of our greatest pleasure. Yeah? Our greatest happiness. I'm convinced of all the roles that I play, the one that I love the most is being dad. Yeah? It brings the greatest suffering, the greatest worry, the greatest trials, the greatest concerns, but it elevates you to the highest places that your emotions can take you as well. Yeah? Those two things coexist together. You cannot have one without the other. It's just a law of nature. And the same applies in business. The same applies when you want to pursue your goals and your vision, and as you look at applying what you're committed to do tonight, as a result of what you've taken from this weekend and what you'll take away tomorrow, we need to be committed not just to the good stuff, but to all the challenges that will come with it. Anything great in life that has ever been achieved always comes at a price. Yeah? And we've got to be willing to pay the price. And it's been my observation as well that sometimes these painful, difficult challenges are the best things that can ever happen to us, even in business, and perhaps especially in business. I want to share one last personal experience, if I may, this time a little bit more serious. And I want to share one of the toughest months of my life and how that's impacted me. Those that are from the French group that attended some meetings with me a little while back, I apologise for the repetition, but the principle is really important to stress. I grew up in New Zealand, and I came over to the UK at the ripe old age. I think I was 22 when I moved over. I came over on a one-way ticket full of enthusiasm and youthful impulse, with about £50 in my pocket, and no way of getting home other than a commitment to get a job, work my way back, and have my overseas experience. Doing a little bit what Jeff said, making a commitment to come over for a year versus a couple of weeks like the Aussies and the Kiwis are inclined to do. So I did that. I came over. I started going to university, and I was studying graphic design, really enjoying it. And then again in this month of October, everything that could go wrong went wrong. And it did so with significance. It started with my sister, my older sister, passing away. She was in New Zealand, and she passed away with cancer. And it was unexpected for me. I knew she was ill. I didn't know the seriousness of the circumstances. But I had no way of getting home. I was out there in the UK by myself. So I didn't even get the chance to make it to my sister's funeral. I had to stay behind. I don't think my family had the means to fly me home. But that was difficult. A week after that experience, the university that I was attending said, "Ben, we recognise that you're a citizen of the country. You were born here, but you're not a resident. You've not been living here for 3 years. That means you're an overseas student, which means you've got to pay overseas student fees. You're not entitled to any grants or any student loans or anything like that. We've got to treat you like an overseas student." I didn't have the means to do that. I was living by myself. So I had to walk away from my degree, unable to complete it because I didn't have the financial means to follow through. The week after that, my girlfriend found that things weren't quite working out, and she finished with me. And so there I was in the United Kingdom, in my early 20s, with no one around to turn to, no one to rely on, no means of getting home, no opportunity for furthering my education, and there I was. I couldn't even get back home. And that all happened in the space of about 4 or 5 weeks. Now, why do I share that with you? Because now, as time has progressed, the girlfriend that finished with me has since married me, and things turned around, and we're happily married with 6 children. Great victory. Sometimes what we think is the end isn't really the end, yeah? And that's a critical thing. A friend of mine once said, if things aren't working out, it's okay. She said, don't worry, Ben, things will work out in the end. And if it isn't working out, it's because it's not the end. Yeah? And that's really true. If it isn't working out for you right now, it's simply because it's not the end. Yeah? Don't think that it is, because it's not. But those experiences that I share because they've shaped me more than anything else. That experience has committed me to being the best dad I could ever possibly be to my kids. I have to thank my father for that. But the experience that I went through as a consequence made me committed to be the best possible dad I could be. As a result of not being able to get my degree at that time, that gave me a ferocity with my ambition and my career that has been relentless. And I've constantly put myself out of my comfort zone time and time again because I felt scared at the thought of being trapped financially and having no opportunity as a consequence. So I put myself out there time and time again in order to make sure that I could take control of my future and take it to where I wanted it to be, regardless of what institutions might say. And now, I'm a managing director just a few years later. It's not that long ago. I'm 39 now. That was when I was 23, so we're only talking not that great a distance of time. And now I'm a managing director. Again, if it isn't working out, it's simply because it's not the end. Again, why else do I share this? Because the principles that those experiences taught me, now I wouldn't trade. I wouldn't take the lessons that have come from those difficult times and swap them for no times. So as you look at your commitment to your future and to your plans ahead, don't trade the tough times for no times. Because it's the tough times that will make you more than anything else. So if you've had, as every business does, your ups and downs, and if you're in a slump right now, or you're struggling to get up, or get to where you want to go, don't think that it's the end, don't think that that's your destiny, don't think that is your lot, because it isn't. It's not your lot. What we need to do is learn to be grateful for those times that knock us to our knees. I have learned through raw experience that the way to conquer great difficulty and challenge is not just to try to survive. It's not our destiny to simply survive, it's our destiny to thrive. And if we want to thrive, and there is a phrase that is used in our industry, and you'll relate to this because anyone that has built a business will have experienced this. If you haven't experienced it, then I'll tell you right now, you're not building your business. And that is what people call the revolving door, where you bring people in and people go out. Has anyone experienced that? Yeah? Good. It means you're actually doing something that's right. Because if we're not doing that, if we're not experiencing that, then we're not building our business, because that is a fundamental reality of what happens. People start something and they quit. People try and then they get put off by the fear, put off by the rejection, and they change their mind. Yeah? That happens everywhere we go, and it happens here in Nican as it does happen in anywhere else in life. So we need to be able to accept that and learn to be grateful for those things and what they can teach us. I have found if you want to have real deep roots in this business, if you want to be real strong and be a part of the great success that's lying ahead of us, not just part of the history, but a part of the future, if you want that to be a part of your experience, then of necessity, you need to be grateful for the hard times. Whatever comes your way, when you get knocked down, when you get some rejection, when you get someone that's selling you something that you want to have, you're desperate to get a yes and they tell you no when they were your hottest prospect, when someone rejects you or maybe plants a negative seed in your team and you get frustrated or disappointed, we've got to learn to say thank you for the experience, what it can teach us. It's the hardest thing to do. But that gratitude for the hard things is what gives us roots when the storms blow and keep us anchored to the truth. Does that make sense? So it's really, really important when you're going to be moving forward and pursuing your victory to be anchored deep, and that anchor that keeps us grounded and strong is gratitude. It's easy to be thankful when you've got good health. It's easy to be thankful when things are going well. It's easy to be thankful if you just had a good month this month, or you've just had a rank advancement. Easy to be grateful in those moments. Yeah? But the true test of character is to be grateful when life knocks you down. And when we can do that, when we can get knocked down and say thank you and then get back up again, we come out stronger for it. There was a man by the name of Admiral Jim Stockdale who was the highest ranking military official from the US military that was captured and made a prisoner of war in the Vietnam War. He was held a prisoner for, I think, 7 or 8 years. During this time, he was tortured more than 20 different times. Many of his colleagues around him died. Not necessarily because of the suffering that they experienced, the torture, but because of broken spirits. But he caught the world's attention when he came out, not because he was just the highest ranking official, of course that caught the world's attention, but when he came out 7 years later, after being a prisoner of war, repeatedly tortured, not knowing when he would get out, he came out a stronger and better man. How does that happen? So of course people wanted to ask, how do you come out a better person after having that? Most people would come out bitter and twisted. Yeah? They were resentful, hateful, spiteful, angry. He came out stronger, better. And so he got asked, how does this happen? They said, of all the people that you saw die in the camp, who were the first to go? And they broke it down to 3 obvious categories: optimists, pessimists, realists. Yeah? Who do you think were the first people to die? Pessimists? A lot of people say pessimists. Most people, when I ask that question, say the pessimists. The realists. Okay, realists. Oh, do you want to hear something frightful? The optimists. Now, that's conflicting to us, isn't it? How the heck can the optimists, or we're the optimists, yeah? How does that work if the optimists are the first to go? Well, he explained it. And this is the birth of this paradox. He said, well, the optimists would do this. They say, it's all right. Well, we'll be out for Christmas. And Christmas would come and go, and they wouldn't get out. Well, that's okay. We'll be out for Valentine's, or we'll be out for Easter. And Valentine's and Easter would come and go, and they wouldn't get out. And they would do this repeatedly until it just broke them. Yeah? And that was the cause. So what is the solution then? Because we want to be optimists, right? He said, this is the solution. He said, first of all, he said, in order for me to come out and thrive, the first thing I had to do was I had to accept the brutal facts of my present reality. Step number 1. I had to accept the brutal facts of my present reality. For me, that meant I was in a concentration camp. I didn't know when I was getting out. I might get tortured today. I don't think there's anyone in this room that has a brutal reality that is quite like that right now. Would I be fair in guessing that? Yeah? But that was something that he had to accept. This is the reality of my existence right now. However, that is not the end of the story. And he said the other half of the story was, I must never lose sight in the end of my story. He says, and for me that meant that not only I would get out, but I would turn this experience into the defining experience of my life that in retrospect I would not change for anything. How is that for a vision? I wouldn't change being imprisoned, wrongfully and repeatedly tortured for 7 or 8 years for anything. What does it take to do that? But he said that's what I had to make it. So if we're going to have a tough time, if you're going through a tough patch in your business right now, then don't bury your head in the sand. Don't pretend that it's something that it's not. We have to accept the brutal fact of our present reality. Own it. You've got to start where you stand. However, that is not the end of the story. You've got to have the confidence that we're going to turn that defining moment into the defining moment of our lives that in retrospect I wouldn't change. I look back at my own life, for example, at that difficult month of October in 1998, where all those things went wrong all at once. And then, of course, the residue of that filtered through into my life for a number of years afterwards in learning how to respond and react to that. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I'm grateful for what it's taught me. I'm grateful for what it's made me. We have to accept that if we want to have the wisdom, if we want to have the joy, if we want to have the abundance that life has to offer for us, if we want to have all of the success that is available, we have to accept that other stuff as well that sometimes is difficult. And challenges and opposition, the hard thing about them is typically they come at times when we least expect it. For example, when you thought you'd just finished with the hard times and you find out that it's not quite finished yet. That suddenly is a hard pill to swallow, isn't it? But we can accept it, we can be grateful, we can move forward, and we can press forward and make that the defining moment that makes us better. That's the critical thing. That to me is what Humans Being More is all about. That's why I love Nikan, because the philosophy is great, but it gives us a vehicle to apply it. And the vehicle isn't fluffy pie in the sky stuff. It's reality, it's life, but it's rewarding. It gives us a chance to build people, to help us to become great, it helps us to shape others, helps us to become our best self, and it helps us to overcome all the things that hold us back. And the greatest thing that holds us back, I've just in my Nikan experience alone, I've traveled to more than 20 different countries with Nikan and talked with lots of different consultants, and I always like to pick people's brains. The biggest obstacle to people's success is self-belief. The greatest thing that will hold you back is your belief in yourself. And the way that we can change that is to accept where we stand, recognize that it's not the end, be grateful for whatever comes our way, the good stuff and the tough stuff, and then move forward, and every time you get knocked down, you get back up, you keep moving forward. I've never been in battle myself, but this is a principle that I believe would apply. I certainly apply it to my position here in Nikan. That in order to survive, if I was to go out to the battlefield, if I really want to live, I've got to be prepared to die. That's another paradox. If I really want to live and win the battle, I've got to be prepared to die for it. Because then all of a sudden I fight like I've never fought before. And then all of a sudden you get the success. We've got to be willing to find out what really matters to us, how important we want to make this, and give it out everything. Everything. And when we do that, we will get so much in return. In fact, there are rewards and there are benefits that come that the Royal Diamonds do and the Royal Ambassadors do their very best to articulate, but the reality is, and every one of them will agree with this, there are certain benefits and opportunities and rewards, wisdom and insights and life experiences that are so deep, so meaningful, so life-changing, you just can't express it. And you never anticipated them. You didn't even realize they existed. There are certain benefits that come at the top that right now we don't even know are even there. We can't put it into words. Yeah? So that's important for us to be able to recognize that. Have confidence that they're available and then pursue it no matter what. But again, I want to just summarize now and conclude by recapping on the critical points. If we want to achieve great things in our life, we've got to accept some counterintuitive truths. That joy and suffering coexist as a single reality. That we need to be committed to and accept the reality that some challenges will come our way and we need to accept them and be grateful for them. And don't turn down the difficult times in place of having no times at all. We've got to be willing to have the hard times to get the best things that are yet to come. And if it isn't quite working out, it's because it's not the end. Yeah? So let's have that vision. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm so thankful to be here with you all tonight. And please, please know, going back to that principle on self-belief, we love you. And I mean that with all of my heart. We love you. And we want you to grow, we want you to believe, we want you to prosper, we want you to succeed. And we want to do everything we can to work with you to achieve that. Thank you very, very much.